forgotten, 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 forgotten.
Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to the Liberal Slop stream. How is everyone? Hello to Small Cute Frog, One Happy Chipmunk, Foxquirk, and Catgirl Steph, and I'm sure there are more of you lurking from the Shadow of the Colossus speedrun and practice that we were doing earlier. Just took a little break, now we're going to do some Liberal Slop. I also broke up the stream so that this will archive as a VOD more easily. Now, speaking of VODs, I am often very clear on the Liberal Slop stream that VOD viewers are my favorite viewers. I love them all individually and as a collective. They're the smartest ones, they're the best ones, and chat is scum. I'm really clear about that whenever I can possibly explain that. The VOD viewers, they're my precious little angels, and chat, they're just not people to me. So let's look at why, right? Let's have a little, today we're going to start off the stream by just having a little look at why that is, why I love the VOD viewers so much, and why chat will just never be them, could never be them. It couldn't realistically happen, not in a million years. And so chat makes up for it, by paying me. If you're enjoying the stream, consider paying for the stream to make up for the original sin of being chat. If you're a VOD viewer, a VOD viewers just pay me because they're good people. That's the crucial difference. So we're gonna go into a little bit of why. Let's go over to, well, this is the wrong window, isn't it? This is the wrong one. It's the other one. Nope, the other one. Firefox. There we go. Cool. Had some great comments from the last stream, and I just really wanted to highlight them, talk them through a little bit. So, yeah, I think it's from here onwards. Victoria Borges 6899 says the main horrifying slop was so vile. In a weird way, it reminds me of the slop stream you did of Ben Shapiro's Barbie video. The author is trying to say to his readers, is saying to his readers rather, hey, there's this big cultural event happening and you'll hear a lot of people saying stuff that seems to make sense. You might even start to feel something, but be vigilant. Here is how you should stop each of these common talking points. How you should view each of the common talking points, And here are some reasons to immediately mistrust anyone who takes those positions. And then he goes on to teach people to cover their ears and close their eyes to injustice. God, it was sinister enough when Ben used this tactic to combat very basic pop feminism. Now this guy is using it to promote genocide. I feel like I need a shower after listening to him. I applaud your stamina and your ability to stare this awful shit in the face, Sophie. I hope you got a good long rest afterward. And then a little chat about Rome. This is a great comment. I love this. So... Jeff Backwards in chat has just said, "Here comes the pedagogy." Always. I must raise chat consciousness, because it's currently so low. It needs to be raised. I can't stop degrading chat today. It's a problem. You know what? It's not. Make up for it with money, chat. Come on. I'm doing my job right now. Pay me. Yeah. So this is stuff that I say on stream a bit about the function of different kinds of propaganda, right? Propaganda should be understood as educating, not in the sense of information or enrichment, but in the sense of giving commands, giving instructions. This is how you deal with this problem, right? And so often, propaganda needs to do this because the position it's propagandizing from is not in line with reality. There are times, I think, historically when propaganda is a sort of shortcut, right? It's used by people who have who have a point of view that, like, I'm going to back up on this one. I think that propaganda is used by people whose politics you may agree with as a shortcut, and there is an interesting discussion we could get into about what the pitfalls of that are and where that might create epistemic lacunae or misinformation. Andrew Marr's fucking article that I don't think I've covered on the stream yet. It's called the cloud of unreason. All of these pitfalls we're aware of, right? Online misinformation. And that's because when these instructions, in a sense, pollute our ability to know and our, like, the structures of our knowledge by telling people act in this way, but informationally, right? Even if it comes from a point of view that you find defensible, it can do an interesting thing to what we know. And yeah. And this, I think, is why theory education alongside propagandizing, proselytizing, and so on is so important. It's I think it's an interesting thing with the left, because we are concerned with morality so much more, and the liberals call themselves realists. The conservatives and the fascists pretend they care about morality. But this is a sort of twisted cover for just getting more power over other people's lives. But yeah, with the left, I think there's an interesting trade-off between people understanding things in common sense moral terms, like genocide is bad and there's a genocide happening. And, you know, again, like a deeper education of theory. It's not always super necessary, and I'm not telling everyone that they must read theory. Just that the general education of it is important within the movement, within the leftist population. Yeah, so Ben Shapiro doing the Barbie video, and Simon Sebag Montefiore doing his article about positions on Israel are doing much the same thing. Tamwat's Tita, thank you so much for giving £10 and saying, "I am an obedient viewer." You sure are, and that redeems you this much. And the reason that I like us thinking a little more about what liberal slop is doing is that by thinking about what it's doing in a sort of active sense, we start to be able to recognize how much propaganda is produced without it being consciously propagandistic, right? The guiding principles of this publication's content are these, and this is the general direction that we speak in, and we have people who've been educated this way and only this way. Right, in our publication, and we cherish access to these people, and if we're critical of those people, we might lose access. These kinds of things are covered in Manufacturing Consent by Noam Chomsky. But I think it's important to... Yeah, I think it is important to be able to see that stuff that isn't produced consciously trying to give people instructions to just shut down that stuff can still do it. Now, am I saying that Simon Montefiore or Ben Shapiro don't think of themselves as propagandists? I honestly highly doubt it. I think of myself as a propagandist frequently. A lot of my work is propaganda. What I'm doing now is theory education, to be clear, and I'm happy to make that distinction. But you know, I'm sure that Ben Shapiro thinks of himself and knows full well that he's a propagandist. So this is another one. LMN977, highlighting the article's structure, a series of arguments positioned around an absence, not building on each other, was so helpful to me. Everything clicked into place. It's exhausting to unpick each argument and trace it to its ideological roots. And there's this trompe-l'oeil that if the writer has such proliferative arguments, you can relax your eyes and accept that at least some of them must be strong. Is there a name for this? Ryan Phillips 7064 says, I would call it a gish gallop, aka fire hosing, aka spaghetti shotgun, but that's more what you would call it from a position where you're attempting to respond. I'm not sure there's a term that covers being convinced by it. Right. Those are all ways to frame the arguments in terms of like debate and discussion, and the way we're understanding this stuff is liberal slop. So I'd say the term may be liberal slop. It is really important for us to understand the spaghetti shotgun, fire hosing, gish galloping nature of liberal slop, that so much of it is produced, and so much of it is produced in a sense organically, right? It's competing in a marketplace of ideas, so it must be formed by natural mechanisms of competition, at least under capitalist journalism. Anyway, that's going to be a big focus of the stream today. I just want to, if this is, this was a really good one. I like it a lot. So, LMN977 again, hello again, said, very grateful for the discussion of disabled comrades and revolutionary organizing, misplaced scarcity mindset, insisting that we are building society around meeting needs rather than enshrining the abilities of the average person. I was really moved by how you defined organizing. Made me feel like I'm not so far away from being able to do it. And then they replied to themselves and said, also, Sophie, if you happen to see this, hey, I'm seeing it now. I hear myself being more articulate, thorough, system-minded, and compelling when I talk now, and I feel that I'm received with more authority and seriousness. And I know it's a result of listening to your streams and Red Planet. I'm really grateful for you, and when I'm able to express that financially, it's my first priority. Chat. If you're enjoying the stream, please consider paying for the stream. You can subscribe or share or donate directly using command tip. I'd like to get to £300 by the end of this stream on the dono goal. The dono goal totally is 1,200. Today we'd like to hit 300 if we can. This is a great comment, right? Hear myself being more articulate, thorough, system-minded, and compelling. I hope so. I mean, I'm not looking to be a rhetorician here. I'm not looking to just train people in debate, but this is the kind of thing that I'm talking about when I say about theory and propaganda, right? I think there is an informational war, to use an unfortunate phrase, that we need to look at that like disconnects us from reality and certainly from morality. With liberal slop, and it's really worth us understanding the mechanisms by which it's constructed for a bunch of reasons. And one of those reasons is to be able to talk to other people about our perspectives better and get them across better. But there are many reasons that this is really important. Maddie O says, "Hey, LMN977 is me. Hello, Maddie O in the chat." Terrible. LMN977 VOD viewer, wonderful. Even though they're the same person, this is just how this works. No, I really appreciate these comments and thanks for saying hi. I really, these. I think this one about being more system-minded was where I decided to read these out on the stream today. So today I want to. Let's go full screen. That'll be better. VOD viewers unite. Hell yeah. Chat knows what it did. Yeah, it better. It didn't give me enough money. Today on the stream, I really want to talk about something related to that last comment, being system-minded. Because I think that we make lots of statements about things being systemic. Racism being systemic and misogyny being systemic, and so we have this interesting natural geometry forming in our mind that there are systems, okay, like for example the police, educational infrastructure, the media, right, and these are systems, and then there are systems of another nature, like the patriarchy, white supremacy, right, that sort of infiltrate, grow into these systems. And I try to use this language about spores and fungus, right? I joke around about fungus thought to try and convey some of this, because this I think is the sort of almost 3D space visualization that people start to have with this kind of language. But if we're going to make more interesting statements, I think we need to use some slightly different language, because as well as the systemic, we really need to talk about the systematic. Systemic statements are sort of ontological. They're making these statements that are just to do with how things are. And in seeking change, I think that we need to understand things not as simply being, as if they're at rest, right? It is systemically like this. The police are systemically racist, and that is a systemic failure of justice. But rather, things as being recreated in every second. Society is made again and again and again in every choice that everyone makes to perpetuate society, right? And therefore, we need to think more about the systematic, like what is being done systematically here. That means making statements that are true in all cases, right? So, for example, we can say that the lack of third spaces for poor kids to go to is a systemic failure, right? We want differently. We, society, that's a system, wants better for children. Child welfare. There are systems in place to try to create child welfare, and there is a systemic failure because none of them are creating third spaces. And so there are all of these consequences. Kids are out on the streets trying to entertain themselves. They're vulnerable to predatory adults who might have those spaces available to them, but around them, they're responsible for crime and all of this thing, right? But then we start listing out the systemic failure's consequences, right? And it's almost like there's been this accident, this oopsie, and now these bad things are happening, right? So we see where our sort of mental modeling, our geometry of the nature of systems starts to become a little warped, because when we understand that there are other systems at play, like the forces of capital, like patriarchy, like white supremacy, like queerphobia, although I would say that queerphobia is largely a part of patriarchy or whatever. I would go on to say that all these things are kind of inseparable, but that they sort of rot these systems and they cause these systemic failures. But instead, I think we should think about what they are trying to achieve and doing in all cases. So instead of saying this lack of third spaces for these kids is a systemic failure, we say the lack of third spaces for working class kids systematically creates excuses for more policing, systematically disguises class warfare as generational warfare, systematically alienates the working class from a young age against their environment, which they perceive as hostile to them because it is, right? These are more interesting statements than just this is a systemic failure, and also it takes these results and recognizes them correctly as the goals of a system. Policing is systemically racist. That is a systemic failure of justice. But if we let ourselves think that policing is in any meaningful sense a system towards justice, then we miss out on seeing that policing is systematically racist. It is systematically classist because it was literally invented as a concept to control the population on behalf of the ruling class. It exists as the physically violent wing of ruling class control, right? That means that systematically, these aren't failures at all. They're the goals. And seeing something's goals like this is a much better understanding of its ontology, of its existence, and leads us to conclusions like we must abolish the police. ACAB, for that matter, is a systematic statement, because it is true in all cases that the institution of policing makes the people working in the institution of policing, it gives them a pull towards being bastards. Kitty Butch says, right, it's like we do not see ourselves as operating within the systems. We don't acknowledge our ability to make choices and beliefs that recreate or disrupt the system. That's a great comment, or it would be if it was on a VOD video. If you're enjoying the stream, please consider paying for the stream. You can subscribe or cheer or donate directly using command tip. We're trying to hit £300 by the end of this stream today. Right, so I would like for us to make some systematic statements about liberal slop today. as an exercise to try to shift into systematic thinking and also to understand liberal slop better. So I have only 3 articles to look at in detail. They are Why the War in Gaza Came to Oxford by Freddie Hayward, The World Economy is Defying Gravity That Cannot Last by The Economist, and The Labor Revolt Over the Gaza War by Andrew Marr. Right. Phenomenological Cat, it's such a good username, says, I've been reading Sartre's Being and Nothingness again recently. For like the 8th time in the last decade, it's my favorite book, and the notion of systemic versus systematic seems like it would be interesting to explore from the perspective of Sartrean phenomenology. I also think Simone de Beauvoir, as well as Maurice Merleau-Ponty and Judith Butler, are very useful in this regard. Can you tell I'm into phenomenology? Lamau. I can tell the Phenomenological Cat is into phenomenology, yes. There's going to be an ad break in 20 seconds, by the way. Just to say again, I'll say it during the ad break. Thank you for that comment. That's fantastic, and I think you're correct about all of that. By the way, I think those all fit in really closely, and are part of the formulation, like part of the formation of those ideas for me. There is an ad now, or was there an ad going on? Oh God, I hate Streamlabs so much. If you're enjoying the stream, please consider paying for the stream. You can subscribe or cheer or donate directly using command tip. I'm doing my job right now, and it's nice when I get paid for doing my job. So please do that. Okay. Not knowing whether the ad is going on is actually fucking me up because I want to start talking about what we're going to do on the stream right now. And chat, can you tell me if the ad is going on now? Oh shit, there's no possible way they could. Wait, do subscribers know when there's an ad? I hate Twitch. Okay, no ad yet. Cool, good to know. Okay, we'll just keep going. Okay, something I've said on the stream before is that liberal slop positions the reader as understanding society from the point of view of the ruling class. So... Sorry, chat's just telling me about the... Oh my god, the ad break has begun now. Jesus Christ. My sincerest apologies to the VOD viewers who, as I've said, I love deeply, who are seeing all this now. I'm just so sorry. I'm not sorry to chat, they deserve it. But you know, your content is being ruined by Twitch's ad system. And that, you know, I just can't tolerate. It's not all right. And that's the secret to understanding all the theory I'm trying to get across today. I'm just fucking with the chat because the ad ended. I would like us to make some systematic statements about liberal slop. Something I've said on the stream before is that liberal slop positions the perspective of the reader with the ruling class. It gets people to take a top-down view of society and imagine what they would do if they were in charge. And I'd like to clarify that as a systematic statement. Like, this is something that so much liberal slop do. These writers, these publications, like, almost exclusively position the reader as understanding things from the point of view of the people in charge, because those are the ones with the agency, right? So those are the ones we should consider their choices, since their choices matter. Oh, Gola from below, thank you so much for the £40. Overdue clown union dues, I appreciate that. MSE stream said, sorry, it's tipped £5 but has no message. And so we can say liberal slop systematically convinces its readers, viewers, and so consumers to view society from the top down and think about the decisions they would make if they were in charge. I would like, as we go through these articles now, for chat and the VOD viewers, and I have my expectations about who will do this better, but I'll keep them to myself, to provide some systematic statements, right? We need things that are true in all cases about what these articles are doing. And then instead of understanding liberal media as having systemically failed to do journalism in a moral and responsible way, we can understand it as systematically trying to achieve certain things. Cool. Let's start with... Katie Butch says, so much of the media systematically enforces the ruling class perspective even beyond journalism. It's so easy to spend much more time thinking about the thoughts and feelings of oppressors rather than the oppressed. Yeah, well, have quite an article for you, Kitty. This is why the war in Gaza came to Oxford. The city's Labour council is haunted by the ghosts of the conflict and by Jeremy Corbyn. Before we even get into this, I just feel the need to take like just a couple of minutes with Freddie Hayward here, because like Jesus Christ, it is ghoulish and disgusting to say the ghosts of this conflict about a conflict that's ongoing, knowing that so many of these ghosts are children, that scores of Gazan children are being slaughtered constantly, to talk about the ghosts of the conflict. But there's also something already really interesting in this byline. I don't want to, let Freddie off the hook too quickly. I want to be really clear, like, this is fucking disgusting, and he should be absolutely ashamed of himself. Fuck off. The ghosts of the conflict. Now, this use of haunted by, though, it's just so bizarre. I don't know if this is his... now I'm coming to think of it, it could have been the editorial. I wonder if he uses ghosts of the conflict in the actual article. Someone at the New Statesman, fuck yourself. Possibly Freddie. This use of haunted by, right, has two subjects. Okay, it's the council is haunted by the ghosts of the conflict and Jeremy Corbyn. Haunting, and just not to derail the stream too much with hauntology right now, but haunting is a phenomenon. It's an experience. It's something that you subjectively process. It's a feeling. It's an experience, right? So if you feel the same thing about ghosts of the conflict, which, again, it's just such a fucking grim thing to say, and Jeremy Corbyn, right? Like, what is in common between liberal slop producers, Starmer fan club presidents, perspective on the people, many of them children slaughtered in Gaza every day, and Jeremy Corbyn? And I think that the answer is we'll discuss maybe later into the article, but the answer has to do with morality, right? It has to do with a pull towards something that you feel is there and ever present, but you can never touch, right? And this is why the use of the word haunted is so interesting. We feel that a haunting is taking place when we feel as though another world, another system, a plan, like beyond our ability to properly understand, beyond our control, beyond our ability to reach out and touch, right, exists parallel to our world and has like, and it is warped and is meeting our world in this one place, right? And yeah, what they're being haunted by is what is right. Like what Freddie is and the New Statesman and the spectre haunting liberalism forever and ever is social justice. And it is wrong that there's a genocide going on and it should stop. And Jeremy Corbyn pointed out a lot of things that were wrong all the time, right? Jeremy Corbyn is the only politician in Britain I've ever seen who's said it's disgusting and disgraceful that there are any homeless people, that society allows anyone to go homeless, who's pointed out that there are homeless people on the entrance into Westminster, into the House of Commons, rough sleepers, and all of these politicians are there debating and shaping society every day, and there are homeless people right outside. Yeah, there are things that are haunting the liberal mainstream, and they are dead Gazans and Jeremy Corbyn. Isn't that interesting? Okay. Okay. Finish my cheese first. Why the war in Gaza came to Oxford. This one's going to be very annoying, if it wasn't already clear. Classic liberal slop start. We're just going to set the scene. It's always important to go there in our mind palace. On October 20th, in a community hall in Abingdon-on-Thames, just outside Oxford, Councillor Imogen Thomas stood up at an all-members Labour meeting to condemn the party's position on the war in Gaza. She announced her solidarity with the Palestinians and resigned from the party. 4 other councillors stood up and resigned with her. The group walked out shouting, "Free, free Palestine," before unfurling a Palestinian flag for a photo outside. Those who remained proceeded to discuss the party's policy on grass verges. Yeah, Freddie, you're right. This is all very silly, isn't it? What a silly waste of everyone's time trying to stop genocide. Wow. 6 councillors who resigned that evening are planning to form the Oxford Socialist Independents, not to be confused with the independent group set up by 2 other Oxford Labour councillors who had resigned the week before. So here we're already starting to evoke this idea that, like, protest resignation happens all the time. MPs around Oxford are just a skittish bunch of prima donnas. They'll resign at the drop of a hat. Nothing they're resigning over really matters. On 26th of October, Labour lost its majority in Oxford City Council for the first time since 2010, after Barbara Coyne became the 9th councillor to resign. Across the country, 31 councillors so far have resigned in response to the party's position on the conflict. Their rallying call is that Labour should demand a ceasefire. While discontent is spreading, nearly a third of the resignations have been in Oxford. I met Susan Brown, the Labour Council leader, who was at the Abingdon meeting, in the Freeman's Room inside the cavernous town hall on Monday, 30th of October. She had cycled from her day job at the John Radcliffe Hospital 2.5 miles away. Sad and disappointed was how she described her reaction to losing Labour's majority. She wouldn't disclose whether those who resigned had warned her before the surreal meeting in Abingdon. Now, the passage of the council's budget and plans on social housing, net zero and a living wage are her biggest concerns. Will the loss of majority jeopardize that work? I don't know is the honest answer at this stage, she said. I hope not, because everyone who has left was elected on a platform which they were very happy to sign up to. That's all our manifesto. It's also the council strategy. It's not surprising that Oxford, a student city comfortable with performative acts of righteousness, oh boy, is the locus of the resignations. The city has been twinned with Ramallah in the West Bank since 2019. There has, quote, always been this interest in our council and our city in international affairs, Brown said. Oxford is a very outward-looking city. I mean, clearly, right, we have limited to no influence over foreign policy. The Victorian essayist Matthew Arnold thought Oxford was the, quote, home of lost causes and forsaken beliefs. As one local party member put it, politics in Oxford is often theoretical. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So, the genocide's happening. The people are being killed. It's not theoretical, it's just far away. Let's have a look at Matthew Arnold for a second. I haven't heard this name before. Poet and cultural critic who worked as an inspector of schools. Part of a series on liberalism. He sure is. You better start believing in series on liberalism, Matthew Arnold. You're in one. Where are we? Yeah, so these couple of paragraphs, right? Susan Brown is so concerned about the net zero, a living wage, social housing, and she doesn't know if they're going to be able to achieve those things because of the resignations. That's kind of how collective power, how collective bargaining works, is that there are things that we all want to do together, and we can't achieve them if we disagree on deeply, deeply important fundamentals. But how can we possibly reconcile these two sides, right? These two furiously opposing sides, liberals with no spine, and people who don't want to sit by and do nothing while genocide happens. How do we possibly reconcile those two sides? They're two furiously opposed positions. It truly is with With what's happening in Gaza happening right now, it truly is like the demonstration of the moment of for evil to triumph. All that is required is for good people to do nothing. Only it's for most people to do nothing, right? It's like the sides culturally right now are liberals who are happy for things to be quiet and want things to be quiet, and people who want there to not be a genocide happening, people who want to stop genocide happening, people who want to free Palestine, and such a small number of people who want to enact the genocide proportionally to the whole fucking world. The biggest group in all this is people who just want politics to not annoy them. Snorsage Chasm says performative. Good lord. Yeah, it's a hell of an article. I'd love to hear Sophie's full thoughts on hauntology in a stream sometime. Good news, Phenomenological Cat. I am writing 2 episodes of Monster Men right now, and the second one is about ghosts. Jeremy Corbyn said things could be a bit better and they lost their minds. Yeah, so I think that there's going to be a systematic statement we can make about morality that we'll get to, but let's carry on reading through the article. Politics is often theoretical, right? Fuck off. No, yeah, I returned to my original fuck off to Freddie Hayward. This is like fuck off. There is a genocide happening, and this is such a wet and pathetic performance of not knowing what to do to keep the politics machine running. Got to keep the politics machine running, right, guys? That's the most important thing, that we keep the politics machine running. Freddie has just article after article about electoral politics only ever electoral politics in the most cheering for your sports team kind of terms possible. Like just Jeremy Corbyn can't derail the Labour conference. The former leader caused a stir by refusing to condemn Hamas, but his influence is much diminished. Again, in this moment when this is happening, right, Corbyn has been so deeply vindicated. Yes, as a politician of integrity, as someone who cares about things on ethical and moral terms, but also like as a politician who cares about the rest of the world and not just Britain. Like one of the big dividing ideological rifts in terms of like what politics means to people and how we engage with it has been in the last few years that people like Corbyn, people on the left, and not just left liberals, but people actually on the left, care about injustice happening wherever it is and whoever it is happening to. And recognize that from within the imperial core we actually wield disproportionate power and can make a difference in those things. But again, not because they simply are some way and we can put in force to change them, but because our countries are putting in force all the time, systematically creating these injustices over and over and over, and in all cases forever, right? And that we can wield power to stop our countries doing that, right? Fucking Freddie Hayward. Let's carry on with Freddie's little article, right? Jeremy Corbyn can't derail the Labour conference. Fucking hell. Jeremy Corbyn inspired Edward Mundy, one of the 6, to resign to join the Labour Party in 2017. Mundy, a postal worker, quit because he could not fathom the repudiation of a politics that he thought Keir Starmer would safeguard when he became Labour leader in 2020. Over an oat milk latte, oh boy, in Oxford's Covered Market, he said he viewed the leadership's position on Gaza as even more morally vacuous than Starmer's broken promises to support nationalisation or the uncertainty over NHS funding. And the refusal to scrap the 2-child benefit cap, that is a shocking one as well, Mundy said. So is Mundy quoted more than that? Is Mundy quoted more than that in the whole article?
He had a whole sit-down coffee with one of the actual councillors who left, and that's all you got.
There's a little bit more. There's a little bit more, but I just want to highlight that we had sad, disappointed, surreal. I don't know is the honest answer at this stage. I hope not, because everyone who was elected on a platform which they were happy to sign up to. That's all our manifesto. It's also the council strategy. These are all these things from the council leader. So on the one hand, yes, the person more ideologically aligned with the New Statesman, with Freddie Hayward, and so on, but what's important here is not Freddie's beliefs when we're examining the ideological action going on and the things that inspire him to fail at being a journalist to the point where he should probably return his degree to whichever university he got it from and ask for his money back. But rather like the systematic nature of ideology, whereby Freddie could maybe think he holds different beliefs than the person he's talking to, and that he's objective and independent and is able to maintain a certain level of distance as a trained journalist, right? But it's more important to give voice to the side of power here than to give voice to the critique of power. Because if you lose access to power, right, then you've lost access to power, and that's the worst thing in the world. That's a shocking one as well, Simundi said, right? That Conrad Zimmerman just raided with a party of 22. Hey, Conrad. Hey, Raiders. Welcome, welcome. We are doing a liberal slop stream. Just to recap, we are reading 3 articles today, and only 3, because we are trying to understand a distinction that I would like to make. Oh, Leon DeBauer just tipped £40. Money for slop. Thanks for stream, Soph. Thank you so much, Leon. That's really nice of you. Just to recap what we're doing for the people who've just joined us, we are looking at a distinction between systemic thinking and systematic thinking. And all of this is being more system-minded, as Maddie O said earlier. But we want to move away from... Oh, my goodness. We want to move away from a statement that's rather plain, that just says this thing is a systemic failure, or this thing is systemic, that are just sort of comments about the nature of how things are, right? Very static, failing to understand the inherent dynamism of politics, to making statements that are systematic, right? In all cases, this is true. Systematically, this thing does this thing. So earlier, my example was what? My example was... the failure of provision of third spaces for poor kids is a systemic failure, right? We should have systems in place that should create better child welfare in society than this. But we've failed, right? And that's the nature of the statement. But it's not just a boring statement. It also, when we go on to list the consequences of this, we see them as the consequences of a failure, right? The outcomes of a mistake, a fuck up. And so when we say... crime goes up, these kids are vulnerable, they feel alienated because everyone around them is being hostile to them and treating them like a nuisance, right? When we say those things, it's just like, oops, shit, we fucked up. We all, I guess, whoever that means, in society, were gonna do better, but we fucked up, and so these bad things have happened. And I think it's more useful for us to understand things in the terms of the lack of third spaces for poor kids systematically creates excuses for crime, creates excuses for more policing, disguises class warfare as generational warfare, alienates those kids by showing them that the world around them is hostile to them and therefore not for them. Serious pundit voice giving lactose intolerance the vote was a mistake. So true. Anyway, so we're trying to make systematic statements rather than just systemic ones. And today we are doing that on the Liberal Slop articles. So we're going to see what we can say about the articles that I've presented today and take them as our sample of Liberal Slop, and then see what we can say that Liberal Slop does systematically. My example to begin was Liberal Slop systematically positions the reader with the top-down perspective on society, right? All of it continually makes us think about what decisions people in charge should be making, because they're the ones who get to make the big decisions in charge. So rather than questioning our lack of true democracy, rather than questioning our ability to make change, it just talks about what decisions the people who can, in theory, make those changes, and therefore it alienates us from power further, right? It takes us away from any notions of collective power or collective bargaining, because we can't be told that we have power ourselves, right? If we're considering the outcomes of some election, some kind of situation, right? Any kind of political situation, right? The options should just be, which choices can Keir Starmer make? The possibility that there is some massive general strike that just refutes a decision that the ruling class tries to make. This is not considered as an option. Systematically, liberal slop alienates people away from their collective power. Okay, cool. Let's carry on reading why the war in Gaza came to Oxford. Okay. There is an implication from some in Oxford Labour that the resignation of the 6 councillors was insincere, or at least opportunistic. Why are we hearing from those people? Why do we need to hear that? Why, Freddie, why do we need to hear that? Okay. Opportunistic because they were already considering leaving the party. Okay, sorry, I need to... Sometimes liberal slop just gets me too mad, and I have to derail myself. If you hate someone and work for them, and you hate them because they keep doing things that you morally disagree with, and people's moral assessment of you is tied to their moral assessment of them, and you want to quit, and then they do something that's really big and also the last straw, that is not opportunism, Freddie. That's just having integrity and standards, and I know that's really hard for you to understand. I know. I can tell from your writing. But that's not opportunism, and framing it that way from the interviews with other people that you've done, those in Oxford Labour, is pathetic. Right, let's carry on. Okay. Luke Akehurst, a member of Labour's National Executive Committee, cool, who lives locally, tweeted, "I was gutted about brilliant Oxford Labour councillors Shaister and Amar resigning last week. But good riddance to these 6 ineffective momentum hacks. They were never Labour, always momentum," referring to the pro-Corbyn grassroots group. Brown said 3 of the group were not standing for re-election, and 1, Ajubu Nala Hartley, had not been reselected as a candidate. Right. A very cool and normal paragraph. But it did not seem as if Mundy was being insincere when he cited the policy on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. I don't know how to pronounce this username, so I'm going to spell it out. DRKN0RK. Dr. Knork has tipped £10, no message. Thank you so much. DRKNORK. But it did not seem as if Mundy was being insincere when he cited the policy on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict as the reason he left Labour. He was quick to mention that he signed a letter in solidarity with the Palestinians in April 2021 when the conflict last flared up. But there are reasons for his departure that do go beyond Labour's current position on Gaza. This was the culmination of a growing disillusionment with Starmer's divergence from the policies of the Corbyn years. Mundy believes in a politics dedicated to influencing policy through protest. There's an argument on the left that Britain's political and military support for Israel provides a lever with which to shape Israeli policy. Yeah. We could stop giving them that support, and that would shape their policy by stopping them having so many guns and bombs to kill Palestinians with. Freddie. Okay. The Oxford Socialist Independent's joint statement shows their resignation was not only a matter of principle, but an act designed to change the military policy of the Israeli government. Britain provides Israel with political and military support, so a call from the leader of the opposition to de-escalate and uphold international law would have been heard. It reads, Mundy said he saw the resignations as quote, part of a broader rebellion of the membership and elected members of the Labour Party against what's happening that could put a lot of pressure on Keir Starmer. But who are a group of Oxford councillors to feign control over what the IDF do in Gaza? Oh my god, there was a fly on my webcam. Oh, piss off. I put it to Mundy that the councillors were elected to run housing, waste management and leisure facilities and not prescribe the nature of war in the Middle East. Oh, jeez. Oh, jeez. This is it's just, there are lies, right? There are lies like we're reading an article that that is promoting some fucking turf ghoul's book, Time to Think. I forget her name, I don't care. About how kids can't consent to medical treatment that they want and need. And we're reading just like lies about the Tavistock Gender Services for Kids, right? And it's like you've accepted ideologically poisoned misinformation from a fascist here. And then there's lies like, I put it to Mundy that the councillors were elected to run housing, waste management and leisure facilities and not prescribe the nature of war in the Middle East. So the implicit lie of pretending that our government in the previous paragraph saying that the left has a position, there is a position in the left. There's an argument on the left that Britain's political and military support for Israel provides a lever with which to shape Israeli policy. So after having just described that this argument exists, that actually like we're doing stuff to inform what Israel is doing all the time, you then say, I put it to him that it's not their job. It's just not their job to decide what happens in the Middle East. So I guess it's just not true what the left said. I guess that's gone. Just not true.
Oh no,
it's not worth considering.
It's not the government's job. He's saying it's not their job. Lowly councillors
I know.
representing their local constituents.
I know. But political parties are supposed to, kind of by definition, be democratic institutions. And if you disagree with what the party is doing, yeah, you can do so publicly in protest of the party. And again, we're getting quite theoretical when we're talking about genocide. Also, a third of the resignations may well have been in Oxford, but that means 2/3 of them were elsewhere, and they've been all over the fucking country. And people are furious with Starmer and calling for him to resign, as they should be, because he's defending genocide. Okay. To be fair to what I said earlier, Mundy is quoted a lot in this article, actually. But then again, so we're also given a tweet from a Labour NEC guy who just calls them momentum hacks. So,
is there any description of the Labour NEC guy? Because he was pretty formative in attacking
Luke Akehurst.
Yeah, he was quite formative in getting Corbyn out of the party and sabotaging
Corbyn's 2017
election
so that he lost by 2,000 votes.
Just
yeah,
fully condoning genocide on the regular.
Awesome. Cool guy.
You know, throughout the past month. So
nice.
Yeah.
What a neat guy.
Yep.
Where were we? In response, he pointed to the connections between Oxford and Palestine and the city's large Muslim population before adding, why would we stay members of the party if we can't possibly align ourselves morally with what they stand for? Here's that pesky word morally again, huh? He said they had all acknowledged that they might not survive an election, which shows they in effect chose to give up their public office.
They chose
the
gardens
groups
facing genocide, which they can't do anything about anyway, over people suffering from homelessness and hunger in the UK. That's like what he keeps stating, right?
The group's actions have prioritized the expression of solidarity over the wielding of political power. The very way in which they resigned was a stunt to garner media attention. It was a symbolic act intended first to affirm the principles of those involved and secondly to impact politics through indirect means. So this, I think, might be the most disgusting article, like paragraph in the whole article, and I think it might be worth reading it over again, which I'll do in a second. But I think here is where we start to really see the arguments made that Freddie is making directly about morality and how it relates to politics. Let's read it over again. He said they had all acknowledged that they might not survive an election, which shows they in effect chose to give up their public office. We don't know if he said that shows they in effect chose to give up their public office. That could be Freddie's commentary. It's not clear. The group's actions have prioritized the expression of solidarity over the wielding of political power. That's a self-contained sentence. It is not what Mundy said, or we're not led to believe it's what Mundy said. Now we're doing this bizarre thing in the paragraph itself, where it's like shifting from what Mundy said to very clearly Freddie's opinions. Anyway, the very way in which they resigned was a stunt to garner media attention. A stunt. So just cheapening it as much as we can. It was a symbolic act intended first to affirm the principles of those involved and secondly to impact politics through indirect means. So an interesting thing there, right, is the use of impact politics, right? As if like politics is here and then a force is impacting it, implies that like there is something acting towards change. Sorry, the fly was there again. Trying to change what the thing is already, right? So impacting politics directly, by contrast, I assume would be like winning an election or like being the government and doing a policy, signing some bill. But that wouldn't be impacting politics. That would just be politics being politics. Right? Like, the thing would not be changing. It would not be impacted. So he's tried to use, this description that's doesn't make sense because he's trying to say that protest is just ineffective and silly, basically. But its first goal before impacting politics is just to affirm the principles of those involved. The most important thing to anyone who ever protests is just that they feel nice about believing the thing. Because they believe the thing. Maybe it's true. Who cares, really? But it's important to those moralists that they feel like they believe that it's true and that they're acting like they believe that it's true. Like they're trying to perform ideology in line with their fucking morality, Freddie. This paragraph sucks so bad. This is where I think that this is where I'd like to say again, like, I think there's systematic statements to make about morality, but maybe we should wait to see how it bears out in the other couple of articles, because I have one in mind, but I don't want to kind of jump the gun with it. But there is this bizarre distancing of morality throughout this article, right? It's just like morality is this thing kind of over there, and then like there's politics over here, and we're doing politics. And politics is very smart and important and good. And there's what's right, but I can't really look at that. I got to look at this. This is the important thing. And I know like there are things that are right, but I don't really care because I'm looking at this thing. Let's go back to... if you're enjoying the stream, please consider paying for the stream. I'm doing my job right now, and it's nice when I get paid for doing my job. I quite like it. This approach speaks to a paradox that was at the heart of the Corbyn project. The party's internal democracy was privileged over the party's success in national democracy. Ooh boy, ooh boy. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. The Oxford councillors were angry that all the most popular policies that Starmer has come from Corbyn, and he keeps betraying them and losing voters because he's a dumb ass. The Oxford councillors were angry that Labour HQ had restricted what could be discussed at council meetings. Sorry, Jeremy Corbyn lost the 2017 election by 2,000 votes. If it weren't for right-wing Labour sabotage, he would have won. He would have literally won. This is unbelievably ghoulish. It's all perfectly in line with someone who would either write themselves or work for an editor who would write the ghosts of the conflict, knowing full well that so many of those ghosts are literal children who are dying every fucking day because of things that these politicians support. It could be stopped. Right. Outside the party, Mundy looked forward to using our, quote, our voice in the council in a way that we were less able to before. They therefore resigned from the party, jeopardizing their chances of holding their seats, if that was even their intention, in protest at internal party restrictions. Protest over power, as Starmer put it in his Labour conference speech. Jeremy Corbyn was the most successful opposition politician leader of the opposition in decades. He by the numbers got more votes, defeated, stopped the government from doing what it was trying to do that was wrong and bad, than any other opposition leader. I think since literally Thatcher. Right. Later that night, a long queue formed outside the Oxford Union for a speech from the brash conservative and pro-Israeli commentator Ben Shapiro. A masked protester with a megaphone dangling from his hand waited outside the Mission Burrito on St. Michael's Street to express his disgust. Around 30 protesters accused the Oxford Union of supporting genocide, while hundreds queued to hear Ben Shapiro speak. Their flag is the wrong way round, someone in the line remarked of the protesters. If I said what I want to say about Freddie Howard right now, I would be removed from Twitch. They are supporting genocide, Freddie. You know that. You know that because this is exactly the thing with what you're doing with your article. You know that morality is just over there. Like, it's just over there, but you can't look at it. You can't look at it because it'll make you sick, because you haven't supported what's right in years, maybe in your whole life. And it would make you fucking sick to see it, and to see yourself reflected in it, and to see that your actions are never moral, nor even trying to be. The next day, Keir Starmer delivered a speech that reaffirmed his commitment not to call for a ceasefire. It was not an argument that would reverberate among many former party members in Oxford. The next day, Daddy did a little speech, and it made me feel really good about my beliefs. Unlike those protesters who protest to feel good about their beliefs. Okay, you know what, yeah, let's hold on with the first article and just see what chat has to say about it. Chat, what's the article doing? Tell me about it. Talk to me. It's better to win elections than to have stances or beliefs. Rocker26A says, I think it wasn't very good. You know what? I think you might be right. I was distracted. Sorry, Mrs. Mars. It's Miss. You all see why I like the VOD viewers better. You see? You all see? You all see why I like the VOD viewers better. This is why. The article is making libs feel justified in not feeling anything. Yeah. It is actively creating and reinforcing inaction, and that's very much the point. Just a little bit of historical revisionism as a treat. But what about second historical revisionism? affirming that adherence to the party line trumps basic moral integrity. Yeah. All right, cool. I really do feel captured by this use of the word haunted, like I said at the start of the article, like this idea that the things that are moral are haunting liberals is like, it's accidentally poetic, right? Because haunting is that. It is this feeling that there is a plan that you can't see or touch or understand. And occasionally it shows up and just like bulldozes your pretense that you can't see it or touch it or understand it, and forces you to confront that you do know it's there, you know? Traditionally, so many ghosts are seeking revenge or finishing unfinished business because there is something that is right. And then there's the way that life is shaped, and this person has died or they were murdered or whatever, you know. And they're coming back to haunt and therefore to change towards a different plan, towards what is right. You know, the past holding the present to account, to use something from the thing I'm writing about ghosts. Morality haunts liberals.
Except the genocide in Gaza is not the past, it's happening right now, right? Like,
Right.
that's why it's so disgusting.
Yeah. They would love for them to be ghosts.
Right.
They're letting them be ghosts. They're very happy for them to be ghosts because ghosts are intangible. You can walk right through them. You can see mostly through them. You can pretend they're not there. And you can tell everyone who's pointing at the ghost, don't be silly. Everyone knows ghosts don't exist, right? And so they'd love for them to be ghosts and are actively supporting them becoming ghosts by killing them. Let's go to The Economist for our second article. Again, we're trying to make systematic statements. We're trying to see what is true in all cases of these articles. Obviously, liberal slop is a wild variety of stuff. It has a tremendous ecological diversity, and so many different approaches. There are still statements that we can make that are true of all liberal slop articles, everything we've ever covered on the stream, everything we will cover. There are other times when we can say things like, most liberal slop systematically does this, because that's how it is, right? It is doing something highly complicated, and so we can make many statements, but they can be more interesting than, this is a systemic failure. It is systemically this. If you're enjoying the stream, please consider paying for the stream. I'm doing my job right now, and I like getting paid for doing my job. So please subscribe or cheer or donate directly using command tip. We're trying to hit £300 by the end of the stream today. The stream will be going for another hour-ish, and we're already on £235. So, sorry, £233.25. So it's very doable if you use command tip. Okay, let's have a look at the world economy is defying gravity. That cannot last. Threats abound, including higher for longer interest rates. Hey, okay. Even as wars rage and the geopolitical climate darkens, the world economy has been an irrepressible source of cheer. Only a year ago, everyone agreed that high interest rates would soon bring about a recession. Now, even the optimists have been confounded. America's economy roared in the third quarter, growing at a stunning annualized pace of 4.9%. Around the world, inflation is falling, unemployment has mostly stayed low, and the big central banks have stopped their monetary tightening. China, stricken by a property crisis, looks likely to benefit from a modest stimulus. Unfortunately, however, this good cheer cannot last. The foundations for today's growth look unstable, peer ahead, and threats abound. The irrepressible economy, there's that word again, has encouraged bets that interest rates, though no longer rising rapidly, will not fall by much. Over the past week, the European Central Bank and Federal Reserve have held rates steady. The Bank of England was expected to follow suit shortly after we published this on November 2nd. Long-term bond yields have accordingly risen sharply. America's government must now pay 5% to borrow for 30 years, up from just 1.2% in the depths of the pandemic recession. Even economies known for low rates have seen sharp increases. Not long ago, Germany's borrowing costs were negative. Now its 10-year bond yield is nearly 3%. The Bank of Japan has all but given up on its promise to peg 10-year borrowing costs at 1%. I've just got here in another tab the price of bread since 1971, and we can just see since 2021 it's shot up by about 30%, about 40%. Since the early 90s, it's basically tripled. So that's cool. That's nice. That's good to know. That the economy is an irrepressible source of cheer. Feeling good about the economy. Love that for us. Just gonna have some more cheese for a second. And let you all enjoy the price of bread on a graph. What a fun little graph that is. Whee! Woo! Cool. If you're enjoying the price of bread, please consider paying for the stream. You can subscribe, watch Euro, or donate directly using Command Tip. Some people, including Janet Yellen, Americans, she should consider lowering her voice. America's Treasury Secretary say these higher interest rates are a good thing, a reflection of a world economy in the rudest of health. In fact, they are a source of danger, because higher rates are likely to persist. Today's economic policies will fail, and so will the growth they have fostered. Growth is impossible because capitalism is fucking the ecology of the planet. But go off, Queen. To see why today's benign conditions cannot continue, consider one reason why America's economy in particular has fared better than expected. Its consumers have been spending the cash they have accumulated during the pandemic from handouts and staying at home. Those excess savings were expected to have been depleted by now, but recent data suggests households still have $1 trillion left. I don't. Which explains why they can get away with saving less out of their incomes than at any point in the 2010s. When those excess savings buffers have been run down, high interest rates will start to bite, forcing consumers to spend less freely. When those excess savings buffers have been run down, high interest rates will start to bite, forcing consumers to spend less freely. And as our briefing explains, trouble will start to emerge across the world economy if rates stay higher for longer. In Europe and America, business bankruptcies are already rising. Even companies that locked in low rates by issuing long-term debt will in time have to face higher financing costs. House prices will fall, at least in inflation-adjusted terms, as they respond to dearer mortgages. And banks holding long-term securities, which have been supported by short-term loans, including from the Fed, will have to raise capital or merge to plug the holes blown in their balance sheets by higher rates. Our rent in the last 6 months went up by £200 a month. I'm going to reopen the price of bread thing. This idea that I don't know, fucking GDP or whatever they're looking at, whichever numbers, whichever line they're looking at that's going up that isn't the price of bread. I just don't, people aren't having a good and cool time, The Economist. What the fuck are you talking about? But yeah, this on the other hand, they're pointing out something very basic, which is that even the people who are having a good and cool time, even the as Awa Badawi would put it, idiot with loads of money, who is happy with the way things are now, the crash is coming. It's gonna hit them too. But it's just good lord, cannot fathom saying that the economy is an irrepressible source of cheer. Fucking hell. Mr. Fishy has tipped £5 and says, consider paying for the price of Sophie's bread. Yeah. Sounds good. Using command tip. Thank you 420 blushed for the 100 bits. Where were we? Fiscal largesse has added to the world economy's sugar rush. In a higher for longer world, it too looks unsustainable. According to the IMF, Britain, France, Italy, and Japan are all likely to run deficits in the region of 5% of GDP in 2023. In the 12 months to September, America's deficit was a staggering $2 trillion, or 7.5% of GDP, after adjusting for accounting distortions, about double what was expected in mid-2022. At a time of low unemployment, such borrowing is jaw-droppingly reckless. All told, government debt in the rich world is now higher as a share of GDP than at any time since after the Napoleonic Wars. Cool. Sick. Tremendous. Love this for us. When interest rates were low, even towering debts were manageable. Now that rates have risen, interest bills are draining budgets. Higher for longer, therefore, threatens to pit governments against inflation-targeting central bankers. Already, Miss Yellen has felt obliged to argue that treasuries carry no risk premium, and Jerome Powell, the Fed's chairman, has insisted that his bank would never cut rates and let inflation rip to ease pressure on the government's budget. Whatever Mr. Powell says, a higher for longer era would lead investors to question government's promises both to keep inflation low and also to pay their debts. The ECB's bond holdings are already becoming... So, can I just pause at this point and say, for everyone who's gotten lost in what's being discussed here, don't worry, that's very normal, because all of this is creating like such mind-numbing technicality to talk around the fact that capitalism is a system with natural boom and bust, and that the longer they pretend the bust isn't happening, the worse the bust is going to get. It's very cool. And again, right, we can say something about morality here, that like there is what is right. There are things that can be done to stop what are going to be the worst effects of this crash ahead of time right now. But we're naturalizing it by simply studying it as the system that we live in, and therefore it just is that way. So there are good decisions that politicians who are in charge could make, right? We see again how the statement I started with, right, systematically liberal SLOP positions people with a top-down view of society. There are good decisions that politicians could make, knowing that this is coming, and there are foolish decisions that they could make, pretending that it's not. But what is right is very far away from that. Let's carry on. Whatever Mr. Powell says, a higher for longer era would lead investors to question government's promises both to keep inflation low and also to pay their debts. I just want to go over that sentence one more time. A higher for longer era, it's like the naturalizations in this sentence. A higher for longer era would lead investors to question government's promises to both to keep inflation low and also pay their debts. Investors in governments. Normal. Government's promises to keep inflation low and pay their debts, normal. A higher for longer era, normal. All just normal things that happen under our normal system.
It's worth saying specifically that when...
I want to have some cheese while you're saying specifically.
When economists, people invested in thinking of themselves as economics people, are talking about the necessity of fighting inflation, what they are concerned about is the inflation of workers' wages. And so when they're talking about, oh no, people still have too much money left over from the like financial easing and the
I mean, I think it's also worth saying this, like, you know, we didn't receive any handout from the government when the pandemic was going on.
Yeah.
Not everyone in America did, but, you know, that was a policy that did exist in America as opposed to here.
Yeah.
And when they're talking here about, like, households having this $1 trillion cumulative in savings, it's like part of what they're describing is politicians pretending the crash isn't there and letting it hurt the poorest and just going on. Part of it is that just giving people a share works better than you can possibly anticipate under the economic laws of capitalism. People just do better when they have more agency to participate in society, and in capitalism, agency to participate in society comes from capital. So just giving them money, right? And again, this is part of the arguments that seem very compelling about UBI. But again, if we could get UBI, we should just have communism. Communism puts us in a position where we can help the rest of the world and be part of making a better world that has a sustainable ecology. And UBI positions us as these little stupid babies being taken care of by the state.
But I think it's important to state specifically that what this article and all articles like it, like fretting about like
inflation
and basically fretting about the easing up of the things that these government, that, you know, the US and the UK have done to try and basically slow down the economy, slow inflation, and slow workers' wages. Like what they're fretting about is what they're saying is what they're fretting about is America won't be trusted to pay debts, and investors and shareholders will lose money. And what they are, you know, who are they afraid of them losing money to? It's the working class. And what they are recommending, without saying it, because they can never too explicitly draw this connection, is more disciplining of the working class to accept shitty wages and impoverished conditions.
I'm with you. Okay. Cool. Because there is a calculation to perpetuate a system that, again, is not moral. And part of the preservation of that system has to put what is moral off to one side and never look at it. And so I do like morality as you know, a thing that we're going to make a systematic statement on between these articles here. The last one dealing with something that implicitly, like very obviously, is a moral issue, the genocide of Gazans, genocide of Palestinians in general, because I mean it's happening in the West Bank too, and the eternal genocide of the poor, like on which capitalism runs. Like our fucking souls, our bodies, our physical well-being, and our mental health, and our familial connections, and our connections to nature, and our connections to the place where we live, and the connections to the products of our lives and our labor, fed into capitalism, taken from us and fed into capitalism to keep it running. And both have to deny morality and put morality off to one side to be a realist, right? And so the systematic preservation of realism in politics, of realpolitik, needs to do this thing to morality where it shoves it over there.
Capitalism fundamentally requires the maintenance of a base level of suffering, poverty, unemployment, in order to make people do what capital commands them to do. Otherwise, they couldn't be forced to do it. And that base level is only going up and up and up. And capitalism is failing more and more to provide people like what they need from the money that they receive.
And something that Graeber does well is point out that we all think this comes from some earlier point at which everyone had a gun pointed at them, and then we had to choose to be in society or get shot. But in fact, it's always been the debt. It's always been just like a baseline of constant suffering against all the decisions of the ruling class. Okay, let's get back to the article. If you're enjoying the stream, please consider paying for the stream. I'm doing my job right now. It's nice when I get paid for doing my job. You can subscribe or cheer or donate directly using Command Tip. I'm trying to hit £300 by the end of the stream today, which will be in about 45 minutes. And we're already on 240, so I think it's very doable with like 130 viewers right now. You'd only have to give like 50p each. Right. The ECB's bond holdings are already becoming skewed towards the Italian government debt that tacitly backstops, a task that has become far harder in a high-rate world. Even when Japanese government bond yields were a paltry 0.8% last year, 8% of Japan's budget went on interest payments. Imagine the strain if yields reached even Germany's relatively modest levels. Some governments would go on to tighten their belts as a result, but doing so may bring economic pain. These strains make it hard to see how the world economy could possibly accomplish the many things that markets currently expect of it. A dodged recession, low inflation, mighty debts, and high interest rates all at the same time. It is more likely that the higher for longer era kills itself off by bringing about economic weakness that lets central bankers cut rates without inflation soaring. Is this some IMF nonsense I just got here? It's The Economist, so, you know, part of the same project, really. A more hopeful possibility is that productivity growth soars, perhaps thanks to generative artificial intelligence, AI. I love when we just get to the magic, you know, when we just get to start imagining literal magic happening. Thasmadar has tipped £15 and says, 50p, more like filthy p. Thanks, Thasmadar. The resulting boost to incomes and revenues would make higher rates bearable. Indeed, figures published on November 2nd are expected to show that America's measured productivity surged in the third quarter. The potential of AI to unleash further productivity gains may explain why higher for longer has so far not punctured stock markets. Were it not for the rising valuations of 7 tech firms, including Microsoft and Nvidia, the S&P 500 index of American stocks would have fallen this year. Final paragraph is titled, Don't Look Down. Cool. Set against that hope, though, is a world stalked by threats to productivity growth. Donald Trump vows swinging new tariffs should he return to the White House. Governments are increasingly distorting markets with industrial policy. Oh, God. Sometimes you remember that the Economist has made a clear statement that their principles are around promoting free market liberal capitalism. State spending is growing as a share of the economy as populations age. The green energy transition beckons, and conflicts around the world require more spending on defense. In the face of all this, anyone betting that the world economy can just keep carrying on is taking a huge gamble. Ooh, spooky. Chat, tell me what's up. Tell me about this article. Tell me your thoughts. Now, do it. I'm gonna have some cheese. I'm having the cheese. I'm having some more cheese. Ah, the wizard will save us. I, for one, don't see the problem with binding all our souls to his phylactery to ensure his eternal guidance. Yeah. Yeah. It'll all be okay. Ashran, thank you so much for the £10 and saying slightly more than 50p. I lost my tardigrades. Oh no. Tragic username. All my tardigrades gone. Tipped £30. Thank you so much. And said, I appreciate the work that you're doing. Thank you. Thank you. Anonymous has tipped £25. Look at that, we got to the goal. Isn't that tremendous? Thank you all so much. Now the goal is just see how much of the goal you can get done. Let me just change it. Goal for the end of the stream, see how much of the goal we do. Cool. Where were we? Right, what the article is doing. I mean, we begin with the false premise that things are currently good. Yeah. And threats that things might get worse if we don't do something about it. I'm not sure what the something that they want to happen is. It's one banana, Michael. How much could it affect the real person economy? Oofa. Ginger with Envy says, I don't understand money and you don't think... You don't think? Might be a typo. I don't think there's a reasonable interpretation of the global economy without understanding the positions that wealthy countries have over those they exploit, aren't simply because of money, but because of a capitalist infrastructure that enforces exploitation on the global south. So I think this is interesting that they bring up AI, right? When AI, like so many technological innovations under capitalism, no, let's back up. Technological innovations under systems of hierarchical power serve the systems of hierarchical power implicitly and will be unevenly wielded by the systems of power against those who don't have power to reinforce power until power itself is redistributed. Sometimes through those technological means, but not through an implicit liberation of technology, right? This is a mistaken argument people sometimes make about technology. To get more specific, so many Silicon Valley innovations, and this is a large point of the Robot King video I made, and also Abby's video about AI, right? Technological innovations, Silicon Valley innovations under capitalism, and nonetheless, no less neoliberal imperialist capitalism, reinforce the shape of power in the world. They reinforce the rich world, like The Economist called it, but I'd say the imperial core, and its power over the imperial periphery, the poor world. Ew. Cool, guys, cool. They're just poor, yeah. Which, you know, is amusing because they are poor in the same way that we are rich. They are poor in the same way that we are poor and our bosses are rich. That we're stealing the value from them. You know, we're rich because we're taking it. Anyway, you know, it's interesting they point to AI, right? Maybe AI can do this. By what means, right? If we were to look materially, if we were to look at the materialism of it and what is being systematically achieved by AI, we would see the further enslavement of imperial periphery labor, right? The smaller and smaller wages for shitter and shitter work. Abby pointed out in her video something about data labeling, for example, right? The kinds of labor that become invisible to us in the imperial core, that is done in the imperial periphery for next to no money, and we think that it's magic, right? We think that magic is happening because the people who make the technology don't really bother telling us about the labor and its relation to labor, because why would they? They're capitalists, and sell themselves as wizards. So the technology just must be magically creating value. And so this is why, you know, SLOP publications like The Economist love to turn back to AI and say, it's magic. The value is coming from nowhere. And what it, in fact, is doing, like so many technologies, is reinforcing the nature of power. Tamas Tita says, but Sophie, this all doesn't matter. All that matters is more productivity and more profit. You know, Tamas, I'm always saying this. You're so wise. Right. Where were we? One sec, chat. Oh no, I've lost my tabs. There we are, cool. Alright. Third article, and it's Andrew Marr, so you know it's going to be long-winded, insufferable, and obsessed with the idea that it itself is being objective. Cool, let's get into it. The labor revolt over the Gaza war. Wait, no, before we get into it, I have to get into something else very quickly, which is the cover of The Economist, not The Economist, the New Statesman this week, which the cover is is also the cover for this article. So we really need to see what they did to their favorite boy on the cover of the New Statesman this week. like, it's trying to... I think it's trying to create this sort of sense of ennui, right? Liberal slop, after all, systematically reinforces the idea that the only choices that matter are the choices of the ruling class, and positions the reader in line with the perspective of the ruling class, top-down view of society, right? It's trying to create this ennui, right? This sort of depressive state. Oh no, what will Starmer do with this political crisis? Having to choose between condemning genocide and doing nothing.
Facilitating genocide.
Doing nothing is facilitating genocide. And so they've got two of Starmer, right? They've got one where he's got his eyes open, and they've got another one where he looks kind of sleepy. And they've overlaid them, and they've made one slightly bigger, and they've made them both monochrome. And and it just looks like he's being sent to the Shadow Realm. Like, it just looks like he's just lost a duel to Yami Yugi. And then Yami's gone, you lose, Starmer. It's just like... I don't know what the fuck to do with this guy's face. Like, and clearly neither do they. And they've been trying for such a long time, putting him on every fucking cover, week after week. Me when the second edibles hits. I fucking... Anyway, this is all about Starmer's impossible situation. Having to either condemn genocide or facilitate genocide. That is so utterly impossible to choose. Let's see what Andrew Marr has to say about it. Dark Magician to Dark Magician Girl is a hell of a glow up. That's my real life. I've been watching a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! Recently. This is probably why this is speaking to me so much. Nat earlier said when we were discussing it, something about the cubes in Starmer's brain. And it just deeply tickled me. Like, he does. He has cubes in his brain, you know? That's what tells him what to do. It's just little cubes in his brain. You're a third-rate politician with a fourth-rate policy platform. Oh, God. The great British people like it in the Shadow Realm. There's nothing to do here. No one's asking you to come up with any policies. Keir Starmer dissociating arc. Oh, jeez. At least it's harder to see his dopey face the way it's overlaid. I mean... Mind crush. Exodia, obliterate. Oh, Christ. All right. Let's get back to it. We got to read Andrew Marr's opinions. How seriously does Keir Starmer take the Gaza crisis engulfing his party? Could it cost Labour a lot of seats at the next election and therefore, in a close contest, electoral triumph? Perhaps belatedly... Sorry. There is important context to this, which is that Starmer was handed such a tremendously huge lead for free over the Tory party because Rishi Sunak is not just an unelected Prime Minister, but when he was running for Tory leader... no one ran against him. It was going to be Boris again, and then Boris just dropped out. He's Prime Minister by default, and all his decisions suck, and all his rhetoric sucks, and everything about him sucks. And he keeps on choosing very, very nakedly and obviously the interests of rich people over everyone else. And so there's a huge lead for literally any Labour leader, and Starmer is just falling down the polls like so many... like so many rakes in a huge field. He is just... Sorry, Your approval rating has reached 0, and you know what that means. Anyway. Might it cost him the election now after everything we've been through together? After our deep love of Keith and all that he's done for us, could the election be lost now if he fumbles this crisis? I mean, maybe, because there are a lot of people calling for his resignation, and it's clearly crossing a line that will stop a lot of people from voting for him. How seriously does Keir Starmer take the Gaza crisis engulfing his party? Could it cost Labour a lot of seats at the next election, and therefore in a close contest electoral triumph? Perhaps belatedly the party leader gets how dangerous a moment this could be for him. It is the biggest crisis of Starmer's leadership. By the way, belatedly he gets how dangerous a moment this could be for him. Yeah, protest is making it a dangerous moment for him. He thought it was going to be fine because Britain supports Israel, the British government supports the Israeli government, the British ruling class supports the Israeli ruling class, and he thought that would be fine, and protest has directly impacted politics and made this a dangerous moment for him. Isn't that interesting? Okay.
I'm cheering.
You're cheering?
Yeah.
I clapped when I saw it.
Damn, that's some good liberal slop suggestion.
Two things must be said straight away. One, he is personally against a ceasefire until Hamas has been defanged. This is not the background whisperings of old Blairites, but what he really thinks.
He has a real opinion!
Citation needed.
No, it came from the Cube.
The cubes. The cubes rattled together and knocked an opinion out. Ah, Christ. Two, he badly misspoke in an 11th of October LBC interview saying Israel had the right to withhold power and water from Gazans and was too slow to correct himself. I think I'm now starting to understand why they've gone with this article, this cover, where he looks like he's fucking derealizing, because they really want to get across to you in this article that he's just a sleepy little guy. And it's his first day, and he didn't get enough Z's last night, and it's really just fucking with him. Like, he's just kind of sleepy, and he's not all there right now, and you should forgive him and give him votes.
But they're fucking lying.
He was too slow to babe. He was too slow to correct himself, though. Babe.
He's been asked.
Babe, you're not being nice. He was too slow to correct himself.
He's been asked so many times.
He supports a ceasefire. That's what he really thinks. Because the cubes told him to.
He doesn't support a ceasefire.
And also
that he won't state that he will
he didn't,
stated explicitly
babe,
that
he didn't say that. He missaid that.
That
And then
Israel
he was too
has
sleepy.
war crimes that break international law. He
No.
explicitly said that's not my job.
Nat, you're not understanding. He was sleepy.
He specifically said, mate, that's not
He
my
had
job.
a heavy carb lunch. Right, let's carry on. This is political inexperience, flat-footedness, not heartlessness. Cool. Awesome. In an argument inside his office between those who see the threat of defecting Muslim voters as minor compared with the interests of so-called hero voters.
Oh.
Hero voters, precarious socially conservative people who voted for Brexit but could turn out for Labour. More interested in the cost of living and those who are deeply worried about the politics of the Middle Eastern crisis.
Who happen to suck.
The warriors have won. Hence the hastily arranged speech on 31st of October in which Starmer reiterated why he was opposed to a ceasefire in Gaza and supported humanitarian pauses only. And gave his wider view of the conflict. By the way, humanitarian pause. Humanitarian pause is a really interesting phrase here. Because it seems to be the new way that the liberal mainstream is trying to describe a ceasefire, because protest is working, because protest is directly impacting politics, and now politicians are starting to reconsider their positions based on how unpopular their positions are. But they can't just use the language that the protesters have used unless the protests get bigger. Because otherwise they might alienate the people who think protesting and having an opinion on things is bad. Why am I saying all this? Let's have a little look at Mr. Trudeau. doing magic with his cubes. Actually, I said to Nat, Starmer has cubes, Trudeau has a cup and ball game, and the correct talking point is under one of the cups. But a magician who is also Trudeau is just moving the cups around really fast, and under at least 4 of the cups is blackface.
We need to see a cease. We need to see a humanitarian pause so we can flow. We need to see ceasing of the levels of violence.
What's a humanitarian pause? Does it not involve ceasing fire? No, a humanitarian pause is like an Oxford comma. It goes, I support the Prime Minister saying that Israel has the right to defend herself. And I tried to grow a spine just now in the seconds where I wasn't speaking, and it didn't work. Labour politics picks up leaders on domestic issues and then forces them to become foreign policy experts at speed. In the decline of empire phase, when the party boasted former... Why are you talking about that in the past tense? It's really just now until the end of the Union, you know? When the party boasted former military figures such as Clement Attlee, James Callaghan and Dennis Healey, then trade negotiators like Harold Wilson, this mattered less. But Starmer's inexperience in Middle East politics and history is now being tested. In one way only, this is a crisis framed entirely around a single word, ceasefire. The demand from the elected mayors Andy Burnham and Sadiq Khan, from the Labour Scottish leader Anna Sawa, is that Starmer should use it. Scores of Labour councillors agree. Around a quarter of the Parliamentary Labour Party, including former Starmer enthusiasts, are on the same page. The hard left calls him a disgrace for not doing so. We sure do. But if Starmer listened, apologised and reversed, his authority would be shot. Right. In his first big foreign affairs crisis, he would have suffered a kind of humiliation. Yeah, he would have been sent to the Shadow Realm. He would have given in to the street. That's a real sentence. That's a real self-contained sentence there that Andrew Marr wrote. He would have given in to the street. Yo. Okay, I added the yo. That carefully constructed impression of a top-down, ruthlessly disciplined machine would be history. Yeah. Maybe it would be good if people stopped seeing Starmer as an authoritarian. I don't know. Maybe they don't like that. I don't know. Flip-flop jibes would enter the conversation. That's another self-contained sentence that Andrew Marr wrote. Flip-flop jibes would enter the conversation. Hey, give in to the street. Flip-flop vibes in this conversation. What's up, my fellow liberals? And this is just what his hard left critics want. To see him reduced to a broken, token leader. No, we want genocide to stop, Andrew. They are out for a ceasefire, no doubt. Yep. But at home, they are just as much out for revenge. So, again, we revisit, right, this idea that there's a sort of opportunism, a sort of cynicism to opposing Starmer on genocide, as if there is something inconsistent, right, that would point us towards this, rather than total moral consistency. Being angry at him for betraying so many innocent people, and impacting the lives of millions negatively, and then he does it more and impacts them more negatively, and it's too much. So we take revenge. All right. And voters of all kinds may have noticed Starmer's struggle. Fucking horrific. Absolutely fucking horrific. Voters noticing his struggle rather than voters having opinions that align with the hard left. Cool. The latest research from Delta Poll, with fieldwork in the final days of October, found his personal rating down by 12 points, though Labour's lead over the Tories actually increased by 1. Wow. It seems like maybe people don't want the Tories and would rather vote for Labour, but they would like to get rid of Starmer because of how he supported genocide. That's just how I would read that data, but what do I know? I'm hard left. Let us look at calling for a ceasefire. Such an exclamation would make any decent person feel better. The more misery and horror that is revealed from inside Gaza, and I fear there is more to come, the more that's true. But calling for one and getting it are two entirely different things. Labour's ability to persuade the Benjamin Netanyahu government and Hamas to stop fighting is less than zero. Oh boy. Oh boy. So Britain arms Israel. So Britain, America, and some others arm Israel and give financial aid to Israel, and are also capable of doing the reverse and putting like sanctions on Israel, like they've done with Russia, and Britain condemning the genocide would put pressure on the other governments to condemn the genocide, maybe even to put sanctions on Israel. All of these things. Labour's ability to persuade them to stop fighting is less than zero. That's just a lie. Like, it's just a lie. It's just... I don't want to just repeat myself over and over again, but it's just a lie. That's just literally a lie. Andrew Marr definitely understands the arguments about the shape of power that are being made when people are saying that we must call for a ceasefire, that Starmer must call for a ceasefire.
Also, like, Starmer's being pressured by people in his party calling for a ceasefire against his instruction, and everyone knows it's against his instruction.
Yes.
And resigning the party over it.
Sadiq Khan is the mayor of London.
Right.
That is a less powerful position than the Labour leader. Sadiq Khan is saying you should call for a ceasefire, and Starmer has started talking about a humanitarian pause, which is what that was.
But like we know that that kind of pressure creates an effect. Keir Starmer can apply that kind of pressure to the Tories. The Tories can apply that kind of pressure on the global scene. They have no interest in doing so, but having that kind of pressure does affect people's decisions and ability to maneuver. And if they were calling this the genocide that it was, it would have an enormous impact.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. Okay. In any case, how much authority does anyone believe the UK wields in the Middle East these days, either with the Israeli government or indeed with Tehran and Hamas? Moral authority was blasted away after the Iraq War. We can demand whatever we like, and we feel good about it, but nobody's listening. To that extent, the ceasefire argument now ripping Labour apart, even if a U-turn by Starmer persuaded the Prime Minister to change direction, itself a fatuous thought, is semantic and tokenistic.
This is such a scummy argument. People already don't trust Labour because of the Iraq War, and they will only trust Labour less if the party that did the Iraq War is then also condoning genocide against Palestinians.
When I am using $15 words, I am trying to concisely convey my positions on things. Often when I am more passionate about my position on something and really want to convey it well, I aim for such conciseness. And when Andrew Marr knows that his position is scummy and understands that he is defending genocide, understands that he is looking for any way around to construct something that bridges the gap between the morality, and we can't look at it, it's over there, don't worry about it, and the real politics, this is when he becomes more inclined to use $15 words. To that extent, the ceasefire argument now ripping Labour apart, even if a U-turn by Starmer persuaded the Prime Minister to change direction, itself a fatuous thought, is semantic and tokenistic. It's just continually pathetic. There's more heavy lifting to be done in the liberal ideology to bridge the gap between liberalism and reality than there is to convey beliefs and an understanding of the world. You know, and when we talk this way, it's because we're trying to describe something that's been obscured from us imaginatively by liberalism. And when they talk this way, it's because they're trying to sell us something. And in this case, it's genocide. Yet this is a crisis for Starmer, not for Rishi Sunak. Cry harder. A few prominent Muslim voices have disturbed Conservative unity. Saeed Awasi, most notably, the Peterborough MP Paul Bristow lost his government job for supporting a ceasefire. But this is not a dilemma equally felt by the main parties because of the greater importance to Labour of Muslim voters.
Not because of the conscience of Labour voters.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Not because it actually matters. They're just.
Well,
it's so dehumanizing.
The thing is, babe, what you have to understand is, right, they're trying to win back the Red Wall. And in the Red Wall, like, I don't know, you're not from the North, so maybe you don't understand this, but they're scum. They're basically human animals, is how I describe them. And they just respond to their basic needs, their drives, like being hungry or horny or needing to shit. And they don't have any thoughts about things like morality because these are human inventions that don't really exist outside of the home counties.
They just reduce like millions of people down to demographics represented by top trumps cards.
Wicked sick. There are almost 4 million in England and Wales. Community leaders tell me Muslim voters used to regard Labour as a soft way into politics, but have never been more united on any issue as they are over Gaza. The Muslim Census Group surveyed 30,000 Muslims across 575 constituencies and suggested that only 4.8% would vote Labour now, against 71% at the last election. Because the study was carried out on social media, mainstream polling companies have derided it as meaningless. Inside Starmer's office, they simply don't accept those figures, reckoning that by the time of the election, 10% or less of Muslim voters might be angry enough to switch. That's 300,000, and if 300,000 people are angry and mobilise, we should take that very seriously, but it won't shift seats, one aide said. The Walthamstow Council by-election at the end of October, where Labour's Shuman Ali Rahman held on to the seat vacated by Alistair Strathern, the new MP for Mid-Bedfordshire, showed little sign of tectonic shifts in the Muslim vote. But even if you discount the detailed Muslim census numbers, something big is happening inside the community. One Muslim organizer said, you can attack the survey on technical grounds, but you can't attack its fundamental message that people have turned their back on Labour. It wasn't polling data, but it was a snapshot of anger. Naveed Asghar Rana, a Scottish Tory who chairs the Conservative Muslim Forum in Scotland, points out that 75% of Muslims north of the border live in just 3 Glasgow constituencies. As in England, there is much talk of putting up independents, which would split the Labour vote. Muslim communities tend to rally around their candidate. Friends, family, uncles, aunts all work together, another Conservative Muslim tells me. It is like a village. This data could be used to shift Muslim voters away from Labour, and MPs are beginning to get spooked. There will be money. Labour insiders believe, perhaps from Qatar. Others fear Russian or Chinese troll farms may be recruited online to spread dissension. Ooh. Ooh. Ooh-wee. Ooh.
All the people fucking catastrophically hurt, fucking terrified of what is happening in the world with the support of their government, their country, not just Muslims, fucking obviously. There were 500,000 people marching just in London, and there's marches all over the fucking country happening. All of those people, they're just demographics. They're just demographics and trolls. They're just demographics and bots. They're not human beings. They're not really real, and they can't hurt us.
Fucking horrific. This is fucking horrific. Labour's traditional opponents are watching with interest. Conservative organisers believe 30 seats could now be in play, and that is, of course, well within the range of denying Labour an overall majority. At the all-party parliamentary group on Palestine's meeting in the Commons on 25th of October, which was addressed by the Qatari and Jordanian ambassadors, one unusual attendee was Ed Davey, the Liberal Democrat leader. What can Starmer realistically do? Pivoting to demand pauses in the assault to allow humanitarian aid in and hostage negotiation only takes Labour to the same position as the Tories. And yet, a party with a proudly internationalist and strong human rights record ought to be able to develop a distinctive position of its own. You mean like a ceasefire? Wow. Wowie. No, Mar's going to tell us what Labour should do now. Labour should, factually, start with the danger of the conflict spreading and shift its attitude to the Netanyahu government. Everyone needs to make the plight of hostages, another reason to a ceasefire that leaves Hamas in charge of Gaza as a no-go, more central. Yeah, cool. So Netanyahu's government is violently persecuting the families of hostages who are seeking for the government to get them back, not bomb them as well with the Gazans. And so that would be another thing that Starmer would have to pressure the Prime Minister to pressure Netanyahu to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Support for the Israeli people. Fuck yourself. Support for the Israeli people after the barbaric terror attacks of 7th October is nothing less than decent. But support for Netanyahu is another thing entirely. For how long should the UK accept its relative isolation as a pro-Israel member of the UN without demanding something in return from Israel's leaders? This is where Labour could take a genuinely useful leadership role. It's time to speak out much more forcibly about the extension of settlements in the West Bank and the treatment of Palestinians there. Cool, another thing that Starmer should pressure the Prime Minister to pressure the Israeli Prime Minister about. Cool, love that. The front bench needs to go beyond platitudes about a two-state solution to much harder questions of how to actually advance towards it, talking to the Palestinian Authority and sister parties in Israel, though the left there is weak. Starmer's decision to make a speech that looks beyond the next horrible period was essential. But he needs to be clearer that there can be no peace in the region while Israel pursues an expansionist policy aimed at driving out Palestinians. He has been flat-footed at moments, for sure. He's just a sleepy boy, after all, and it's his first day and also his birthday. But he hasn't toppled over. Nothing is irrecoverable. He retains the authority of an opposition leader 20 points clear in the polls.
Optimism there, Jesus Christ.
He retains the authority...
You're not literally dead.
He retains the authority of an opposition leader 20 points clear in the polls. Had this not been the case, he would have seen more high-profile defections and resignations already. Disciplining Labour figures that call for a ceasefire would not be right. But he needs to send a message that abuse of colleagues will cost people their jobs. Badwa, first time chatting, says, congrats on your pregnancy. Thanks, babe. Me and my girlfriend have been trying for a while. That means a lot. Abuse of colleagues will cost people their jobs. Wow. Just genuinely. Alright. Did I have a point about that? I don't know. I was just marveling at it, really. There are other important lessons to be learned. Tony Blair never operated in opposition or in power without powerful and semi-independent cabinet colleagues. Robin Cook, John Prescott, Gordon Brown, and Claire Short all had a lot to say on foreign affairs. Recent weeks would have been much easier for Starmer if he had a wider circle of colleagues and advisors with whom to bounce around ideas and language.
My recommendation is to get some friends.
I also think Starmer should get some friends. Yeah. Yeah, I think that would be huge for him. Maybe he'd be less sleepy because he'd be less depressed if he just had some friends. That picture that they put out of, like, Starmer watching football with his, like, closest cabinet pals, so sad. So deeply sad. It's worse still because he is actually a Gunners fan. So there was this picture that they put out that was, like, Starmer watching the Gunners game with, I don't know, Rachel Reeves or whatever, and some, nameless aide. And it's just like, It was just like, cool, corporatized production of the appearance of having a personality. No, he's been a lifelong Arsenal fan. And it still looks like that. Like, it's still a blank concrete room with a big flat screen pinned to the wall. Watching in some glass-walled office. Like, the authentic personality he does have can't come through because of the cubes. Like, the cubes just restrict his, even things he truly feels, like passion for his football team. Alright, cool. The left has been divided over Israel and Palestine, not just in the UK, but across Europe and the US. Guess again, the left has not. And everywhere, there are malign outside players keen to widen divisions. Yeah, we should all be as suspicious as possible of anyone online who says that genocide is bad. In a dangerous world, and in the context of what Tories predict will be a security election next year, a Labour leader with a confident analysis of national interest is essential. That is unlikely to be a leader pushed off balance by marches or online abuse. Andrew Marr is rapidly becoming 150 years old. Like, it's just like this obsession with the idea that opinions you don't like come from Russia or China.
I think I think it's important to state like that these things come together to create a picture. Like, the purpose of this kind of shit is to tell people, don't worry. Obviously, we all think the good things and want the good things. We're good people. The people that are mad at us are obviously divisive, crazy,
Russian.
led astray, bots,
Yeah.
NPCs,
Yeah.
AIs.
Yeah.
And
it's so
this
funny
is my
as well.
top trump card that represents them.
It's so funny as well because that essayist Matthew Arnold, I think, that Freddie, delightful little Freddie, silly little Freddie, cited in his article, called Oxford this place of lost causes. But Marr is making a bajillion lost cause arguments right now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The silent majority agrees with us. They're all confused. Everyone who disagrees is, like you say, confused, led astray, tricked, paid off, cynical, angry at us for different reasons. They're actually a bot. All of these things. Like, these are lost cause arguments. Right. None of this matters as much as the misery and horror in Gaza. Nothing like it. But the authority of the probable next British government is in play. Millions of voters struggling to understand what Keir Starmer would be like as Prime Minister are watching with narrowed eyes. Cool. So those are the articles that we wanted to look at today. If you've been enjoying the stream, please consider paying for the stream. You can subscribe or cheer or donate directly using command tip. We already hit our goal for the day, but if you feel like giving more, then that'll help just more throughout the month. So please do. We want to make some systematic statements that have been true across the articles, and I do appreciate that requires people to have stuck around and heard all the articles today. Chat, what do you think the liberal slop that I've picked out for you today is all doing systematically? What statements can we make about Freddie Hayward's why the war in Gaza came to Oxford, The Economist's The World Economy is Defying Gravity, and Andrew Marr's The Labour Revolt Over the Gaza Conflict? Snossage Chasm actually makes a pretty good systematic statement by saying, we can't do nothing, lol. Yeah. As we said earlier, liberal slop systematically alienates people from collective power and tells them the only choices that matter are the choices of the ruling class. Mario says, I feel like the magazine's editorial line is everyone around you taking a moral position? We'll find out a way to quibble with it until you feel like your passivity makes you the smartest person in the room.
Yes!
If you keep reading it, you get used to the mental sequence of feeling instinctively that something is good/bad, and then realizing there's no way for you to know that. And then you start making that leap yourself unconsciously. Am I only just learning how liberal propaganda works? Don't worry, everyone is. Mr. Fishy says having morals is bad. I'd like to make some moral systematic statements here, because I do think how they treat morality is probably the most interesting running theme throughout these articles. They are scared at the protest. True. very good. Like, yeah, absolutely. They really, it's not just that it alienates. One of the mechanisms by which it alienates people from their collective power is telling them the protest is bad, inconvenient, annoying, disruptive, wrong. All the statements we were just making before about how anyone who disagrees with you is just experiencing a false consciousness. Came in late, but it seems they're against protesting against genocide. It's overall supportive of passivity, but I just saw that last story. Yeah, well, I mean, if you've only seen the one, then it's harder to make a statement about all the slop we've looked at today. We will do another systemic and systematic stream looking at a wider variety of topics to try to get you all thinking how we can make systematic statements about something that is a little harder to compare. Because 2 of the articles today were about Gaza, right? But I think it's really worth us looking at how liberal slop systematically alienates the moral, how it treats morality as a known quantity that is always unpracticable, right? It creates a separated world of morality and of politics where real things are done. Cedar-Rit has tipped £24.24 and says liberal slop streams are systemically good. That's good. Liberal slop is systematically separating the real from the moral, and so the real decisions that get us forwards are practicable and therefore worthwhile at all, and the moral decisions, though they might haunt us, like Jeremy Corbyn, ultimately can't go anywhere because they're just abstract. They're this abstract morality. It's what students care about, you know.
I think one thing that it's really worth emphasizing is that the political...
Sorry, first time chatter Metal Jesus has just asked, can you make yourself burp though? What were you going to say?
The political reality that all of these people live in and are trying to enforce on everyone else.
Yes.
Is exactly what you described in that. So neoliberalism is like the sort of political ideological technologies of neoliberalism is this idea that that politics, the actual people in charge are just managers.
Sorry, Metal Jesus says, how loud though? Crying, laughing emoji. And that's the point at which you have to tip me £50 to find out. Go on. I mean, this is...
Yes.
Since it's clearly a fetish thing,
Yep.
You're going to have to pay past this point, Metal Jesus. Go on. That threw you off. You're stun locked. I can carry on with the stream.
There's many great investigations into such a subject, the anti-politics machine of neoliberalism, which is trying to convince everyone and create a political reality that is like everyone agrees. This is this kind of universalism. Everyone agrees on the basics. They have the same shared morality, and it's all just about management. And management includes managing image to voters who are fundamentally dumb machines, and politics is all just a circus to facilitate the correct management of the country. Basically, politics isn't real.
Well, let's talk about correct for a second, because I think... Sorry, you clearly have more to say. So, and once you start realizing that, you can see it in every article. That's it's systematic. It's systematic of liberal slop. Yes.
Like that it is trying to maintain and reinforce and relies upon the foundational assumption that people in politics have are all based on the same shared understanding and have the same goals, and it's all just about figuring out how to like play the football, do the management the best, and that's all obviously been fundamentally shaken by the rise of the far right. But you know, it's why they castigate the right and the left, right? The masses.
Yeah, they see the right rising up and they're like, oh, you on the left, don't you do that. Don't you start.
Yeah.
Or we know what you're going to say.
And they see political action among the masses, and they go, no, you're supposed to just be robots that we tell us to do.
There are statements we will be able to make at a later point
Yeah.
about what a liberal slop does systematically regarding populism, but it wasn't in the articles today. So we will leave that for now. And I will say something we could say systematically from the articles today, and articles that we've covered in general, is that liberal slop does rely on a belief in a kind of your football idea was pretty good actually, because it's not quite like the immortal science of Marxism-Leninism kind of level of like there is one correct thing to do, and if you analyzed it wrong, then you just didn't do enough dialectical materialism, right? It is a little bit more like football. Like there are known rules and plays and strategies, and maybe one will pay off, but there is this sort of authorized playbook by which politics can function. And one thing that liberal slop absolutely always does is systematically reinforce the goodness and completeness of that political playbook and the wrongness and badness of everything outside of it. Ginger with Envy says, I've only been here for 2. It felt like both were dancing around something they know people think is good and doing their darndest to try to convince people to not think that way. So they had to know that they're actively working against people's morality and are trying to provide a space for people to be able to ignore that. Yeah. Good stuff. Making the representative aspect of democracy as toothless as can be, presenting to us only what they want to represent. Tammy's Tunes says, yeah, that's a very good comment. That's a very good comment as well. Actual representation, actual representative democracy will listen to protest because it's the people's voice. And yeah, this is why liberal slop is so against protest every single time it comes up. Right, that's been the stream. I'm gonna wrap up now. Last thought, let's go raid someone, I guess. Red Planet is going to be starting in an hour and a half over on Red Planet Live, twitch.tv/Red Planet Live. I'm going to raid into Casey Explosion. Go all be nice to Casey. I'm going to have some dinner. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you've been enjoying the stream, last chance to pay for the stream by tipping with command tip. If not, not if you've not enjoyed the stream. If you want to support me another way, you can go to linktree.ee/Sophie from Mars and see all the ways to do it. Oh, I typed in Casey's username wrong. That's embarrassing. There we go. Cool. Thanks everyone. I'll see you on the next one, which will be longer and, as I say, a bigger variety of liberal slop for us to try and make some systematic statements about. Okay, good night. Bye!